The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. There was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem, at the sheep gate, a pool called in Hebrew Bethesda, with 5 porticos. In these lay a large number of ill, blind, lame, and crippled. One man was there who had been ill for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had been ill for a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be well?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. While I am on my way, someone else gets down there before me." Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your mat, and walk." Immediately the man became well, took up his mat, and walked. Now that day was a Sabbath. So the Jews said to the man who was cured, "It is the Sabbath, and it's not lawful for you to carry your mat." He answered them, "The man who made me well told me, 'Take up your mat and walk.'" They asked him, "Who is the man who told you, 'Take it up and walk'?" The man who was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had slipped away, since there was a crowd there. After this, Jesus found him in the temple area and said to him, "Look, you are well. Do not sin anymore, so that something worse may happen to you, so that nothing worse may happen to you." The man went and told the Jews that Jesus was the one who had made him well. Therefore, they began to persecute Jesus because he did this on a Sabbath. The Gospel of the Lord. You know, I've come to discover that playing a little game is a good way for me to understand Jesus in the Scriptures, and therefore to prepare my homily, to have something to share with you. So I played this little game. The game might be called, "What would I do if I were Jesus? What would I say if I were Jesus?" Because if we think about that, we'll usually find that Jesus actually says and does things very different from what I would do. And there's a real lesson in that. Who should change, Jesus or me? So, let's play that game. There is this healing pool in Jerusalem where crowds of sick, lame, blind, people with every conceivable malady are there waiting for an angel to come to stir the waters. When the waters are stirred, whoever gets in that pool first is cured, is healed. Now, there was this man who was there for 38 years, lying there on his mat in that portico, suffering, not yet healed. And Jesus comes along and was aware of this man's background. And so he says to him, do you want to be well? And what kind of an answer does he give? He says, he whines. He whines. I have no one to put me in the pool. I've been here for 38 years. And when the water's stirred up, I try to get into the pool, but somebody always beats me to it. For 38 years. You can almost hear behind that him saying, oh, woe is me, I'm hopeless. Now, what's behind that? Jesus might have said, you've spent 38 years here and you've alienated everybody who could possibly help you to get into that pool. Don't you have any friends? You could have spent those 38 years cultivating a friendship of somebody who would wait with you until it was time, and then they could put you in the pool and you would be healed. I think that's what I would tell the guy. It's basically, look, you've been here for 38 years. Why don't you grow up? There are ways of getting yourself into that pool. Jesus didn't do that. Jesus didn't give him a lecture on self-reliance as I probably would have. I guess I have to ask the question. Would you have been inclined to give him a lecture on self-reliance also, and maybe perform the healing as a last resort after he had been duly warned? No. What Jesus does is he simply he doesn't have time to try to straighten this guy out. He simply heals him without further comment. Pick up your mat and walk. And immediately he became well. Now, the enemies of Jesus were looking for some way to pin something on Jesus so that they could oppose him, so that they could, as it says here, persecute him, so that they could eventually put him to death. And so they asked this guy, you're doing something that you're not supposed to do on the Sabbath. You're carrying this burden, this mat. And he says, well, the one who healed me after 38 years, I was lame, I was infirm, and he healed me. Well, who is this? We need to know who's violating the Sabbath. And he says, I don't know. He didn't give me his name. He disappeared. And then he comes across Jesus. And Jesus said to him, listen, you have been healed. Now change your life. He uses the word, do not sin. But inside what he's saying is, turn your heart away from focusing on what you can't do, focusing on yourself. Turn your heart to God and listen to him. So what does this guy do? He immediately goes and snitches on Jesus. He says, it was Jesus. He's the one. He's the one who told me to break the law. Now, if Jesus is God, is the Son of God, he knew that the outcome of this healing would be that Jesus would be opposed, that he himself would be opposed, and that this man would not change, even though he was healed. So, Jesus heals him anyway. Now, should we be like what we would like to do? Or should we be the way that Jesus actually does? We may want to think about it.